This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 35 and I've been going to the same local gym for years. I thought I understood it, that I was part of a community. But now, I can't shake off what happened. Here are 3 unsettling experiences at the gym that still haunt me. One evening I was lifting weights in the free weights corner. The gym lights flickered and buzzed. I felt good, confident. I glanced around, doing my usual routine. That's when I noticed a man in the corner leaning against the wall. He had this strange grin on his face, staring right at me. I thought it was odd, but I shrugged it off. Maybe he was just another gym regular. After I finished my set, I turned to say hi. But when I looked back, he was gone, just vanished. I felt a chill, but I tried to forget it. The following days got weirder. Every time I opened my gym bag after a workout, I found something strange inside. First, it was an old photo of a family I didn't know. The edges were worn. I squinted at their faces, trying to remember if I'd seen them before. I felt uneasy but thought maybe someone dropped it accidentally. Then a torn gym membership card showed up. It made no sense. I wondered how it got there. I ran my fingers over the frayed edges, feeling unsettled. Then the whispers started. At first I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination. But it felt different. The voices were muffled and almost pleading. They seemed to come from the shadows when I worked out, especially when I was alone. My heart raced each time I heard them. I tried to lift weights, but all I could think about was that guy with the grin. One night after finishing my workout, I was stretching on the mat. The gym was nearly empty. I glanced in the mirror, and out of the corner of my eye I saw him again. The grinning guy. He stood just outside my line of sight. I asked if he was okay, but he didn't respond. He just kept staring with that uncomfortable smile. I felt this chill wash over me. Then I blinked, and he was gone. My heart dropped. I looked around, but there was no sign of him anywhere. Now I can't shake this feeling that someone's watching me. I can't explain what happened. Were these just my mind playing tricks on me, or was there something wrong in that gym? The whispers still echo in my head, sending chills down my spine. What was that guy doing there? Why was he watching me? I can't go back. I can't figure it out, and I'm too scared to try. I feel trapped in what happened. I don't know how to get rid of it. I wish I could forget. But those experiences still linger like shadows in my mind. The next few days were a struggle. I avoided the gym, thinking maybe some distance would help me shake off the creeping feeling in my chest. Each time I passed the entrance, a knot tightened in my stomach. I could still see the grinning man in my mind, his eyes fixed on me. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, but it didn't work. Then, one afternoon, I received a text from a friend. He wanted to work out and asked if I'd join him. I hesitated. I thought about canceling, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. So I agreed. When I arrived, the gym felt different. The air was thick and heavy, and I immediately felt a sense of dread. I found my friend in the weight room, laughing and joking. I tried to match his energy, but my mind kept wandering back to that man. Every corner of the gym felt like it was hiding something. After a while, I excused myself to grab a drink. As I walked past the locker room, I heard it again, the faint whispers. I stopped, my heart racing. I leaned closer to the door, trying to make sense of the words. They sounded urgent, almost desperate. I felt the urge to turn back, but curiosity kept my feet glued to the spot. "Help us," they murmured. My skin prickled with cold sweat. I quickly backed away, rattled. I rushed to meet my friend again, desperately trying to act normal. But the thought of those voices lingered. What did they mean? Our workout continued, but I was distracted. I kept glancing at the mirrors, half expecting to see that guy again. And just when I thought I could relax, I glanced up and caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye. It was him. This time he was farther away, near the entrance. His unsettling grin seemed sharper, more pronounced. I blinked in disbelief. "No, no, no," I muttered under my breath. I rubbed my eyes, hoping it was just my imagination, but when I looked again, he was still there, staring right at me. I felt paralyzed. I couldn't call out, couldn't move. My friend noticed my expression and followed my gaze, but by the time he turned, the man had vanished. My heart raced, and I felt dizzy. I needed to get out of there. "Hey, are you okay?" my friend asked, looking genuinely concerned. I forced a smile and nodded, but I couldn't shake the intense feeling of dread. We finished up, but as we walked to the exit, the whispers returned clearer this time. "He's watching," they echoed. I gripped my friend's arm tighter. I couldn't keep it together anymore. When we stepped outside, I took a deep breath. I glanced back at the gym, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw that man in the window. Just a silhouette, but that grin was unmistakable. I told my friend I needed a break. He didn't understand. He just thought I was being dramatic. But I knew I couldn't go back there. I couldn't let that man into my head anymore. That night, I struggled to sleep. The whispers haunted my dreams, and I felt eyes on me even in the safety of my own home. Then I found it. Something slipped from my gym bag as I tossed it aside. It was a small, worn-out bracelet. I picked it up, confusion washing over me. It wasn't mine. That's when the chills crept through me again. I didn't know how it got there, but now I had to know more. I needed answers, and I was terrified of what I might find. I spent the next day in a daze. The bracelet sat on my kitchen table, and I couldn't stop staring at it. Something about it felt off, like it held a memory I shouldn't have. I picked it up again, feeling its cool metal against my skin. I decided to investigate. I needed to retrace my steps back to the gym. Maybe someone there had seen the bracelet before. I felt anxious, but I didn't think I could find any answers by sitting at home. When I arrived, the air was still heavy. My heart raced with each step inside, and I took a moment to gather myself near the entrance. The gym was busy as usual, but it felt different now. I spotted my friend in the corner, but I didn't want to bother him. I needed to find out what I could on my own. I wandered toward the locker room, glancing around nervously. The whispers echoed in my head. "Help us. He's watching." I tried to shake them off. Maybe this time I wouldn't hear anything strange. Maybe I could just ask a staff member about the bracelet and leave. As I reached the locker room door, I hesitated. The whispers had been louder just outside, more frantic. I pressed my ear against the cool metal door. My stomach dropped when I heard it clearly now, unmistakable. "They're trapped." I pulled away and took a breath, fighting the urge to run. Just then, a staff member stepped out. She looked surprised to see me. "Hey, are you okay? You look a bit pale," she said. I managed to force a smile and asked her if she recognized the bracelet. I held it out, hoping for an answer. She studied it, frowning. "I don't think I've seen it before," she said, but her eyes flicked to the door I had just been listening to. "But you might want to be careful around here. Things haven't been quite right lately." "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised. She hesitated, glancing back toward the corridor. "Some members say they've felt strange presences, like someone is watching them, or following them. There's been talk about it." The knot tightened in my stomach again. I nodded, unsure of what to say. I wanted to ask more, but I felt a chill wash over me. My instinct told me to back away from whatever was brewing in this gym. "Thank you," I said, turning quickly. I walked back toward the workout area, but my mind was racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Just then, I spotted a figure near the entrance out of the corner of my eye. It wasn't just anyone. It was him. This time he was stepping through the door, his grin stretching wider than I'd ever seen. My breath hitched. Something primal shouted at me to run, but I stood frozen, ice flooding my veins. The whispers ramped up again, filling my ears with their frantic pleas. "Help us, he's here." And then everything went dark. I woke up on the cold floor of the gym, disoriented. The lights flickered above me, and the sounds of laughter and clanking weights faded into the background. My heart pounded as I scrambled to sit up. Sunlight streamed through the windows, but it felt unnatural, like a spotlight on a stage. I blinked rapidly, trying to gather my thoughts. Had I fainted? My fingers brushed against the bracelet, now warm against my skin. It felt sinister. I needed to leave. As I got to my feet, I noticed the gym was emptier than before. Where had everyone gone? Panic rose within me. I rushed for the exit, but my feet felt heavy as if the ground resisted me. The whispers returned, louder, more insistent. Find them. Save them. I pushed through the doors and stumbled outside. My breath hitched as I glanced around, desperate for familiar faces. At the far end of the parking lot, I saw him again, standing by his car. That grin twisted something in my gut. The moment our eyes locked, a shiver ran down my spine. I turned to run, but my legs felt sluggish. It was as if something was pulling me back. The whispers erupted into a cacophony. "Don't leave! You must help!" I fought against the invisible hold, moving step by step toward my own car. Despair threatened to swallow me whole, and just when I thought I'd break free, I heard a faint, haunting sound from behind me. "Help us!" The voices were clearer now, but the words heated my blood with fear. They were coming from the gym. I had to know. With every ounce of courage, I turned back. The gym door stood ajar. A chilling wind pulled at me, and the whispers began to form images. It was as if I could see through the door, but what I saw chilled my bones. Figures, shadowy and gaunt, moved slowly within. They reached out towards me, their faces contorted in terror. I recognized them. Those were faces I'd seen at the gym before, members I'd worked out alongside. They seemed to be trapped, unable to escape whatever horror had been unleashed in those walls. I can't just leave them, I thought, my heart racing again. I took hesitant steps towards the door, ready to confront the unknown. But before I could react, I felt a hand press against my shoulder. I turned sharply to face him. His eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity, and that grin was still plastered across his face. "Are you ready to join them?" he asked, his voice sending a cold shiver through me. I felt my heart clench. "Who are you?" I shouted, but my voice shook. He leaned closer, his breath icy on my skin. "You'll see soon enough." In that moment, a sense of urgency gripped me. I had to make a decision. I could turn back, flee, and abandon those trapped souls, or I could push forward into the darkness. As I took a step toward the door, I heard a crash from inside, and the whispers transformed into screams. That was when I realized I wasn't sure how much time I had left. I took a deep breath and forced myself to move. The door creaked as I pushed it open, the air inside thick and stifling. Each step I took felt like wading through mud. Shadows shifted in the corners of my vision, and the whispers twisted into haunting pleas. "Help us. Please." Trapped souls. I had to find a way to set them free. The gym, once a familiar place of sweat and triumph, now seemed like a labyrinth of despair. I stepped further in, scanning the darkened room for the faces I'd seen before. As I approached the weightlifting area, I felt the temperature drop. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I glanced back towards the door, half-heartedly considering escape, but the screams pulled me deeper into the maw of the gym. I spotted one of them, Kayla, a regular at the midday workouts. She crouched by the squat rack, her eyes wide and wet with fear, her hands clawing at the air. I reached out for her. "Kayla, it's me. I'm here." But as I got closer, she recoiled, and a look of pure terror crossed her face. "No, don't touch me," she screamed, her voice cracking. "What? Why?" I didn't understand. I felt a surge of frustration. "I can help you." Just then, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. He was back. The man with the twisted grin leaned casually against a support beam, watching us both. "You shouldn't have come back," he said, his voice oozing satisfaction. Kayla shook her head frantically. "He's feeding off our fear. Get out while you can." I felt the weight of dread settle over me. My chest tightened as I hesitated, torn between reaching her and the growing sense of danger. "But you're in trouble. I can't just leave you here." "Help us," the whispers echoed again, but they felt different now, almost mocking. Suddenly, an icy wind surged through the gym, knocking over weights like dominoes. The rumble grew louder, drowning out the voices. Chaos erupted around me as shadows lunged from the corners, reaching out with ghostly hands. I stepped back, heart racing. "What are you?" I yelled at the man, desperation rising within me. He simply laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. "I'm your guide to the truth, but trust me, you may not like what you find." Before I could respond, the shadows swirled closer, tightening around Kayla and me. I felt like I was being pulled into a dark vortex, and panic flooded my veins. I needed a plan, but my mind raced with confusion. Then everything snapped. The screams morphed into cries of, "Help us!" again, but they were fading. In that moment of chaos, I caught a glimpse of a shimmering portal behind the weight racks. My instincts kicked in, and I darted towards it, grabbing Kayla's arm in the process. "We need to go now." But a shadow lunged at me, and I felt a grip on my ankle, cold and suffocating. That's when I saw its face. My reflection warped and twisted, eyes hollow and pleading. I gasped, my heart pounding as the reality of what I was facing sank in. Would I become one of them? Was I already? I yanked Kayla through the void, just as shadows closed in on us, its fingers brushing my skin. We fell through the portal, light blasting against our eyes. But as it closed behind us, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we escaped was still lurking, waiting for the right moment to strike again. I tumbled out of the portal and landed on a hard surface. The sudden shock of the impact jolted me into awareness. Kayla stood beside me, her breathing frantic as she scanned our new surroundings. We were in an abandoned hallway that led to a series of dark, closed doors. A flickering fluorescent light overhead buzzed ominously. "What just happened?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Where are we?" Kayla pressed her back against the wall, eyes wide. I don't know, but I don't think we're safe yet." As I stood up, I could feel something shift in the air, a heavy presence that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. It was like the shadows from the gym had followed us, slinking just out of sight. My heart began to race again. Then I noticed something strange. Each door along the hallway was marked with numbers. Most were faded and covered in dust, but one door stood out. It had a fresh scratch across its surface, and the number was written as 3. "Over there," I said, pointing. "That door looks different." Kayla shook her head. "I don't think we should go in there. What if it leads back?" "I don't know, but it might also hold answers," I replied. My curiosity battled with my fear. "We need to figure out what's going on. We can't just stay here." Each step toward the door felt like I was trudging through quicksand, but I forced myself to keep moving. I reached for the handle, and as my fingers brushed against the cold metal, a chill ran through me. I twisted it slowly and pushed the door open. Inside was a dimly lit room. The flicker of a single bulb exposed scattered gym equipment, untouched and layered with dust. But that wasn't all. In the center, there was a large mirror. It was cracked, and dark stains spread across its surface like shadows pooling in corners. "Is this the gym?" Kayla whispered, stepping inside. "But it looks abandoned." Suddenly, the mirror shimmered, reflecting not just our images but distant fragments of the gym we had just escaped. I caught glimpses of people working out, laughing and lifting weights as if frozen in time. But their faces shifted, morphing into twisted versions of themselves, filling me with dread. Before I could process this horror, the air thickened with tension, and I could hear a low rumble grow louder. The whispers, the pleas for help, echoed around me. "Help! Us! Make it stop!" I shouted, clutching my head. All at once, the gym's essence pulled at my core, threatening to drag me back into its twisted grasp. Kayla took a step toward the mirror, as if drawn. "I have to see. I have to understand." "No!" I reached out, trying to grab her, but it felt like grasping air. She was slipping away, her reflection blurring in the chaos. Then everything went dark. The light bulbs flickered out, plunging us into pitch black. I felt the panic take over again, and my heartbeat pounded in my ears. There was no way I could let her go. Not now. I reached out again, desperate. "Kayla!" I yelled, but the silence was suffocating. And just when I thought I'd lost her, a faint glow began to emerge from the cracks in the floor. Shapes began to form, but they weren't the souls I'd seen before. No, these were something else entirely, a more sinister presence creeping closer. I backed away, my heart racing once more. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I had no choice but to confront it. What I faced next would either be my salvation or my doom. I stumbled backward, my senses on high alert. Shadows twisted and danced at the edges of my vision, almost seeming to pulse with a life of their own. A low, guttural growl emanated from within the dark, sending a fresh jolt of fear through me. Panic surged as I realized I was completely alone. "Kayla," I whispered, hoping my voice wouldn't shatter the thick silence. No answer came. The glow from the cracks was dim, but it illuminated the outlines of figures, their features obscured, almost human but not quite. As I took another cautious step back, a sudden crash echoed behind me. I spun around, adrenaline flooding my veins. One of the gym weights had fallen from a bench, clattering loudly to the ground. The noise compounded my anxiety, making every nerve in my body scream to run. A chill wrapped around me as I stared at the falling weight. Then my eyes darted to the mirror. It flickered back to life, showing the gym scene again, but this time it was different. The figures inside weren't just shadows. They were distorted faces wrenching in silent agony. They reached out, fingers splayed as if begging for release. A cold sweat ran down my spine. "Stop it!" I yelled, though I knew the figures in the mirror couldn't hear me. I felt trapped between two frightening worlds, the real and the reflective, each filled with dread. Then, as if in response to my plea, the mirror rippled like water, and a loud crack sounded. I squeezed my eyes shut against the chaos and tried to steady my breathing. This can't be happening, I kept thinking. I needed to find Kayla and escape this nightmare. When I opened my eyes, the glow had intensified, and the distorted figures had begun to move toward me, their features becoming more defined. I could see pity mingled with darkness in their eyes. A solitary voice broke through the chaos, chilling me to the bone. "Join us!" I felt my resolve falter. "No!" I shouted, horrified. I rushed to the door, heart racing and legs finding new strength. I had to get out. But just then, the mirror showed something horrific. A glimpse of Kayla, her face etched with fear, trapped behind the glass. She banged on the surface, but no sound came through. The helplessness was unbearable. "Kayla!" I cried, reaching out toward her image. The figures encroached further, and I could feel their cold presence at my back. "You can't leave us," they whispered, their voices like the rustling of dead leaves. "Stay." Driven by fear, I yanked the door open and bolted into the hallway, my feet pounding against the floor. I didn't know if I'd ever reach Kayla, but I couldn't stop now. I had to keep moving. As I ran, the air around me thickened, suffocating. Darkness encircled my every step. I turned the corner, desperate for a way out, but what I found made my blood turn cold. Another door loomed in front of me, one marked 4. It was slightly ajar, and a faint light seeped out. Something about it felt foreboding. I wanted to dive through it to find Kayla, but fear gripped me. What if this door led to more horrors? What if it was a trap? But I could hear her voice, faint yet clear, pleading for help. That was enough for me. I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve, and pushed the door open. As I stepped inside, I knew my search for Kayla was far from over. It might just be the beginning of something much worse. The air in the room felt different, charged with an energy that made my skin crawl. I stepped inside the door, the click of it closing behind me, swallowing the sound of my quickening breath. The light flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that twisted along the walls. "Kayla," I called out, my voice shaky and uncertain. The room was filled with gym equipment, but everything was strange, out of place. The weights were suspended in midair and the treadmill was running, but the belt wasn't moving. It felt as if time warped here. I moved deeper into the room, scanning for any sign of her. "Please, Kayla," I choked out, the weight of dread pressing down on me. I felt very alone. Every corner of this space felt as if it were watching me. Then I saw it. A small table in the corner, cluttered with items I recognized but didn't fully understand. Workout clothes, my old sneakers, and a dusty photo of us at the beach last summer. My heart sank. Why was this here? As I reached for the photo, a cold wind swept through the room. I twisted around, eyes wide. "Leave this place," a voice echoed softly, almost a whisper. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. I turned in all directions, desperate for the source. "You must go." I stumbled backward, the photo slipping from my fingers to the floor. The moment it hit the ground, shadows from the equipment shifted, coiling toward me. Panic ignited in my chest. Something was terribly wrong. This was no ordinary gym room. "Kayla!" I shouted again, more frantic now. My fear was a beast inside me, clawing to escape. I felt as though I was trapped in a nightmare, where reality warped according to the whims of something dark. Just then, the lights flickered again, plunging me into darkness for a heartbeat. I heard a dull thud, then another. It was coming from behind me. I turned, finding the door I had entered from now tightly shut. Wildly, I tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I was locked in. With my heart racing, I pounded on the door, shouting for help. "Let me out! I need to find Kayla!" My voice bounced back as though the room itself was mocking me. Then, a shadow moved in the corner of my eye. I whirled around, and what I saw sent ice through my veins. A figure stood near the table, shrouded in darkness. It was indistinct, yet menacing. The shape almost human, but devoid of discernible features. Before I could process, it lunged at me with lightning speed. I gasped and dove to the side, barely avoiding its grasp. My instincts kicked in, and I scrambled toward the nearest wall. I had to find Kayla. I couldn't lose her in this void. That thought propelled me forward. I would confront whatever this was. Then, from the depths of the shadows, I heard her voice again, clearer now, like a lifeline. "Help me." My chest tightened as I realized it was coming from that dark figure, but the malicious energy around it told me this was not my friend. Not anymore. Desperation surged within me as I realized I was running out of time. I needed to fight, to push through this terrifying fog and find Kayla before it was too late. Just as I gathered myself to confront the figure, the lights flashed brightly one last time, and the room distorted again. But this time, something new caught my eye. An exit door. It was just within reach. I bolted toward it, but the figure lunged, blocking my path. "You can't leave," it hissed, the voice distorting into a low growl. I hesitated, feeling the weight of dread cling to me, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't let it win. With every ounce of strength I had left, I shoved past the shadowy figure. Suddenly, I was through the door, but on the other side, a new nightmare awaited. I was not safe yet. The darkness was still hunting me. "Kayla," I gasped. Now it was a race against time. The question was, would I find her before it was too late? The door slammed shut behind me as I entered another room. A heavy silence wrapped around me, making my limbs feel leaden. This space was different. It was smaller, cluttered with old exercise machines and dusty weights that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. The flickering light overhead did nothing to ease my panic. "Kayla!" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. I could feel my breath quickening, the heaviness in my chest returning. Was she even in here? I forced myself to calm down, focusing on my surroundings. A worn-out bench pressed against one wall, and in front of it long mirrors reflected back a distorted version of myself. As I turned to check the corner of the room, a sudden noise froze me in place. A soft sob echoed off the walls. It was faint, almost lost in the shuffle of my racing heart. I didn't want to move, but I had to find her. "Kayla!" I called again, more quietly this time, hoping she'd respond. No answer. The weight of the sound left me feeling more unsettled. The sobbing persisted, intensifying, its rhythm creating a discordant atmosphere that felt like it was closing in on me. I stepped cautiously toward the source, each footfall muted by the layers of dust on the floor. Just then a glimmer caught my eye near the bench. I leaned forward and saw a bright red gym bag, the same one Kayla always used. My heart raced. If it was here, then maybe she was close. I unzipped the bag and began rummaging through its contents. Some water bottles, a towel, and handwritten notes with workout plans. But no sign of her. Suddenly, everything went dark. The flickering lights died completely, and I was enveloped in an oppressive blackness. I heard the trembling sob shake the walls. Panic surged through me. I reached out blindly, my hands brushing against the cold metal of the bench. "Kayla, where are you?" I shouted into the darkness, my voice echoing back without answer. But something moved beside me. I felt the air shift as a figure slid silently into my line of sight. It was another shadow, but this one seemed to pulse with malice. The sobbing intensified, morphing into a wail of anguish. "Help me!" It was her voice, but distorted, twisted into something I couldn't recognize. "Kayla!" I reached out, desperate to find her. My fingers brushed against the figure's cold, damp surface. It felt wrong in every sense. I jerked my hand back, heart thudding in terror. Then the light flickered back on, casting an eerie glow over the space. The figure was gone, but the wailing had turned into a deafening scream. I stumbled backward, gasping. My eyes darted around the room, searching for Kayla, trying to understand what I had just encountered. That's when I saw it, a note pinned to the mirror with a rusty gym pin. I approached it trembling, my breath caught in my throat. It read, "You shouldn't be here. She's lost. You cannot save her. You." The words struck me like a physical blow. Who wrote this? Was it another trick? As the implication sank in, a chill swept through me. I knew I had to act, but the overwhelming dread pulled at me, tugging at my will to move. Then just outside the door, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. I wasn't alone. Whatever had been hunting me hadn't given up yet. With adrenaline surging through my veins, I took a deep breath and prepared to face whatever came next, hoping that somewhere in this chaos I'd still find Kayla. The footsteps grew louder, echoing menacingly in the void of the room. My heart raced as I scanned the dark corners, desperate for an escape, for Kayla, for anything but the reality of being trapped in this nightmare. The shadows danced around me, flickering like ghosts taunting their prey. "Kayla!" I shouted again, my voice carrying the weight of my desperation. I had to find her. I needed to know she was safe, or at least try to save her. The note pinned to the mirror hung heavy in my mind. "You cannot save her." Darkness rushed closer, and instinct kicked in. I bolted toward the door I had entered, but something tightened around my throat, as if the darkness itself was trying to restrain me, dragging me backward into its hold. I struggled against the grip, teeth clenched, and finally broke free, bursting through the door into the hallway. But I was still not safe. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, warped and suffocating. I pressed forward, knowing I had to keep moving. Yet the whispers were louder now, wrapping around me like chains, clawing at my resolve. "Help us. She's lost. You shouldn't be here." Suddenly, a flickering light caught my eye through the haze of panic. I turned, hesitating only a moment before rushing towards it. It was another door, slightly ajar, with a sliver of warmth spilling out. I seized the handle, pushing it open only to be met by a blinding light. I stepped through, squinting against the brightness that momentarily overtook me. I blinked away the glare, and there she was, Kayla. She stood in the middle of the room, her eyes wide, tears streaming down her cheeks, as if she had been trapped in fear itself. "Kayla!" I yelled, relief flooding through me. But as I approached, I noticed the way she trembled, how her eyes flickered nervously toward a dark corner of the room. The shadows seemed to slither closer, creeping along the walls like sentient beings, watching us. "Don't come any closer!" she screamed, raising her hands in front of her, trembling. He's right behind you." My heart plummeted. I spun around, dread crashing over me like a wave. He stood there, the man with the twisted grin, his hollow eyes gleaming with malice. "You really thought you could escape?" His voice dripped with derision. "They're all trapped here, just like you will be." "No!" I shouted defiantly, but dread threatened to consume me again. "You don't own us!" Kayla's pained scream rang out as the darkness loomed around us. "We need to fight it. We can't let it take us." Desperation clashed with fear as shadows surged, grabbing at my ankles, pulling me down. But tugging at something deep within me, I realized there was still a flicker of hope. "I won't abandon you," I yelled, and with all my strength I wrenched Kayla's arm free from whatever grip the shadows had on her. Together we bolted toward the other door where reality felt just beyond our grasp. The whispers mounted into a chorus of wailing, but I could feel Kayla's presence comforting me, grounding me in the chaos. Focusing on the light from the door, I ran like I had never run before. The shadows lunged at us, claws extending, cold as death, but I wouldn't let them take us. I pushed forward. We reached the threshold just as their grasp closed in. A blinding light enveloped us. And then silence. I awoke on a gym mat, the familiar smell of sweat and rubber filling my lungs. The air was thick with the essence of normalcy, but I felt my heart still racing. I blinked, disoriented. Around me stood confused gym-goers, their faces twisted in concern. It was just an ordinary day at the gym, but everything felt wrong. I caught my breath, scanning the room frantically. Where was Kayla? Panic gripped my chest until I felt a hand on my shoulder. I spun around, my relief morphing quickly into bewilderment. The staff member stood there, her eyes shimmering with empathy. "You had us worried. You collapsed. Everything okay?" I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could get the words out, the note from the mirror flashed through my mind. The shadows, the whispers. "We're trapped," I murmured. I saw it. Her brow furrowed, concern palpable. "What do you mean? There's nothing wrong here." Or was there? I gripped the edges of the mat, the world spinning around me. I could still hear its echoes, the whispers beckoning, the pressure of pallid hands reaching for me. They were trapped. The words slipped from my lips like a fading dream. The staff member leaned closer, her expression unreadable, but I could see the doubt forming beneath her calm facade. "Maybe you should take some time off. Things can get overwhelming." That was it. The ambiguity left hanging like thick fog. Had I imagined it? Was it all just my mind's tricks? My pulse quickened again, uncertainty flooding every thought. I could still feel the grip of the shadows, the urge to run. But what if it wasn't over? What if somewhere beneath the concrete and steel, the gym hid its secrets, waiting for the next unwitting soul? "I need to go," I whispered, feeling a chill. I backed away, the voices still murmuring in the corners of my mind. "I'll be back, later, maybe." As I turned to leave, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. I caught a flash of movement in the mirror's reflection, a familiar dark silhouette, watching from the shadows, grinning wider than ever. I moved swiftly, fleeing the gym. But as I glided through the entrance doors, my pulse quickened. Each step felt like it ignited the echoes of that dreadful encounter. I told myself I'd never be back, but deep down, doubts crept in. I'd be haunted, forever wondering if what I saw was real or some figment of my imagination. The gym lights flickered behind me, and I took one last glance over my shoulder. There he was, still standing at the entrance, a mere shadow of a grin. I felt a chill wrap around me, knowing the questions would linger about the man, the whispers, all of it. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if the gym is still there, if the whispers still echo through those haunted halls, and if they do, who else falls into their trap?